Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your sun in Aries and your moon in Libra. Wow. I'm saying wow because these are opposing signs. So for some of you, you're going to have to check the chart service that you got the information from that told you that your moon is in Libra to find out exactly what degree. And I use astro.com and they have a chart table there. So they do all the work for you and you can see if there's really an opposition going on there because even though they're opposite signs, they have to be within a certain degree span around 180 degrees to be officially considered an opposition. And the reason that that doesn't really make such a big difference for me personally is because if you look at what each sign represents, you can see how they would oppose one another. However, I have found that, there's another term for opposite signs. They're called complementary signs, and that alludes to the fact that they're going to have similarities. I will say that besides both being cardinal signs, I'm trying to figure out what Aries, ruled by Mars, the god of war, and Libra, ruled by Venus, which we associate with peace or harmony, however you want to call it, and more delicate aspects of life, how they would have common ground. They're both masculine signs and they're both cardinal signs, so I guess you could look at it that way. But yeah, so it's very interesting. So typically when I do these, I kind of break down what each position means and then kind of talk about how they come together. So I'll start with the moon, and the moon is our emotional nature. So it can indicate how we express emotions, but also our attitude towards emotions. So with Libra, Libra is an air sign. And I personally believe I'm not an air sign. I'm a Sagittarian. I'm a fire sign. Like, if you're an Aries sun sign, you're fire too. I feel like the air signs are trying to escape emotion. Even as something that's really warm and fuzzy and positive, a lot of times the air signs are aloof to even that because there still is this intensity involved. And air is light as a feather, right? So it doesn't want to be heavy and intense, even if it's heavily positive or gooey, like romanticism. Libra is a very romantic sign, but it doesn't necessarily want the accompanying emotions that are over the top and all of that. That's not Libra's way. There's a detachment with the air signs. Fire is very passionate. So the fire and the water signs are actually the emotional signs. The earth and the air are the ones that are kind of like standoffish as it pertains to expressing strong emotions. And I'm not saying that they're robotic, I'm just saying those strong emotions, be it positive or negative, air and earth signs would rather not really go there. And I'm sure that there might be some astrologers or lay people who would disagree with me on that. So, we all have to create our own theories, don't we, so that we can think for ourselves. But that's how I see things. So in any case, you have these opposing forces. You have the sun, literally, but you have the sun in fire and you have the moon in air. And your moon is your emotional nature. So how does that work? This is also true for the water signs. When the water signs have a sun in water and they have a moon in air, it can get really weird because their emotional nature is trying everything it can not to be emotional. And their sun sign, which is really their aspirational self, the part that wants to take on the world and do great things in the world, it's got this emotional nature. So how does that work when the sun is the emotional nature? Well, in that case, it's like really baked into the personality as a whole, and even the type of things that the person wants to do, perhaps. In this particular case, since the moon is in air with the sun in fire, this is harmonious because I would say it's harmonious in the sense that the fire signs, but especially Aries, because it is ruled by Mars, tend to be hotheads, tend to be very like reactive. Just there's a real rashness or impatience with Aries people. And so when it comes to their reactions, their emotions are reactionary. They tend to just like react very suddenly. That's what a hothead is. Because if it's something that pisses them off, they're not going to just deliberate with it. I do believe that with the moon in Libra, this lessens that potential for the Aries person to go off. So, because the moon is connected to safety, the person with the moon in Libra really does crave relationship and feels like they want to experience relationship in order to feel a sense of safety, because this is how they operate. Their emotions are generated by this idea of partnership. So I would say that for anybody with this combination that is single right now, you may feel like you're missing a limb. You may feel like something is not as it should be, because that's just how you're emotionally wired. It doesn't mean that you're like totally incapable of being happy alone. I'm not saying that, but it's just that the moon can be very like karmic, meaning that you're carrying these traits from other lifetimes, but also even in this lifetime, the moon can represent the mother. So, if you think of your parents as being the result of your karma in some ways, then you can see how it would affect that you would attract or even choose the mother that you have. So, speaking specifically about that, this would indicate a mother who is like a Libra. It doesn't have to mean that she is or was an actual Libra, but she behaved that way. And it could be that she was very fair with you, that she taught you how to be polite to others, the social graces, that she was a beautiful woman, maybe physically beautiful, but at the very least elegant, that she wasn't coarse. She wasn't rough around the edges. Well, I was going to say Aries, Aries is like the bull in the china closet. I don't think I've ever watched this movie all the way through. I should. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and I think about Marlon Brando, and he was a double Aries, sun and moon, I believe. And he played like this character that I think was supposed to be very like a ruffian or some kind of brute. I don't know if I'm correct about that, but not exactly a very mannered and cultured individual. And for somebody with a double Aries, that might come naturally to that kind of individual who's playing that part. But you have the moon in Libra, so you have these sensibilities to be able to navigate your way socially in a way that maybe benefits you. It's very helpful when Aries people, Sun and Aries people have, or even Aries rising people have other parts of themselves that counteract those tendencies that I had mentioned. Aries people can be accused of being too blunt, too aggressive in speech or actions, too self-centered, not thinking of others, thinking of oneself. Aries rules the first house, which is the house of the self. Libra rules the seventh house, which is the house of partnership. So there you go. That's exhibit A of why that would be possibly true. But this can modify that with you because you have these competing influences. And you may even have, with the sun in Aries, you may have other planets that speak about more gentleness. Maybe you have Mars in Pisces. The moon can be in any sign. And the moon, I'm sorry, not the moon. Mars and Venus being inner planets, they can't necessarily be in every sign, in any sign, but sometimes they can get quite far from the sun when they're in retrograde. Because when I'm thinking of a recent Mars retrograde, when Mars went direct in Gemini, the sun was in Capricorn. So it was way far away from Gemini. But getting back to the connection with the mother and the moon, if you saw your mother, for instance, being too obsessed with her looks, because that can play into the moon in Libra individuals. It can be the shadow side of each sign, the moon position. So with Libra, it can be how one's looks are kind of what the person feels that they need to focus on in order to maintain love, in order to feel safe. And to me, feeling safe is ultimately feeling loved, feeling accepted by your partner or by, maybe multiple people. So even though the sun is in Aries, and Aries can be very bold, brash, and it's a masculine sign, so those people for whom this is really affecting them in terms of beauty issues, in terms of relationship issues, just understand that there is a part of you that is very independent. And, depending on trauma levels, some people have experienced a lot of trauma, so the instability leads them to want to create something that is unbreakable. And, sometimes you can't do that because you can't control another person. I mean, you can, of course you can do it, but you can't guarantee it for yourself. The bigger picture in all of this is, can you gain that insight that allows you to see things in a much more balanced way? Because when we're talking about opposite signs, we're talking about polarities. So the person might swing from one extreme to the other. With the sun in Aries, life can feel like it's a battlefield. Like there's one battle after the other that you have to fight. And, Aries ruled by Mars, the warrior energy, that's where that comes from. Well, what happens when everything is peaceful. That's when it can get full of drama, because you may feel that peace is boring. Now, I do feel that when people have the moon in Libra with the sun in Aries, they're going to be more open and accepting of harmony in their basic nature, compared to maybe some other sun moon combinations with the sun being in Aries. But I still believe that this is a possibility where the person wants harmony in their life from an emotional standpoint, but from, the standpoint of the goals that they are setting. And this can even be mainly with career. The person may get themselves in this very competitive environment, and then emotionally they don't feel good, because they really do feel safest when they are in situations where there's a lot of cooperation. So the workplace can be like a minefield if a person is not balanced and not in harmony with others. A person who is in a position of authority can abuse that power if they are not balanced within themselves. So this is where it can get tricky for people with this combination, because they may want something. Their emotions might be making them want something that they do not actively pursue. So they might be at cross purposes, in other words. So if you have this combination, you have to reconcile that inner peacemaker within yourself. Because Aries rules the first house, and that's the house of the self, there is going to be this default position of always looking out for number one. But emotionally, you can't do that. You're very much concerned about other people, their feelings, fairness, issues that involve fairness, and you may feel this sense of betraying yourself if you go after things, and I'm talking about like goal-oriented things, and you're not looking at the equity. I personally believe that people who are very successful in a worldly sense, sometimes they are not that bothered by situations that seem unfair, or even in some cases that are actually downright deceptive in the work environment. So let's say you're an Aries person who's really a go-getter, and you come into this company and you get a promotion very quickly. And it's not to say that you may not have worked hard. I don't want to make it like that. But let's say there's somebody else who has been there longer than you have and has also done a good job, but the boss, the management, likes your style, your aggressive style more, and maybe your ability to schmooze them. With that, there's nobody. It says there's not as great a schmooze artist in this world as a Libra. And this is your ability to flatter people and to charm people into compliance is bar none. But again, because your sun is in Aries, you may have some combative elements. You may have some rough around the edges elements that can work against you for those kinds of aims at times. So which one wins out? Well, it depends on maybe looking at other factors. Look at your rising sign for sure, and that can be anything. If you have a rising sign that even a rising sign like Virgo, which is nondescript, but is also in alignment with Libra in terms of etiquette, in terms of social graces, in more of a legalistic way, I would say, for Virgo, but still that kind of same belief that people should behave decently. You know, that's life in the big city. Sometimes one person gets preferential treatment over another, and it's not necessarily fair. I know that there are going to be some people that say that seniority is no longer relevant or whatever, but I'm talking about a situation that is clearly where somebody else has paid their dues, and they're not getting that kind of um, yeah, what would I call it? It's not a gift. It is the prize, I suppose, but it's well earned. But in our society, people who are very competitive, they get a lot of kudos from people in positions of authority because it's that dog eat dog mentality that is considered how things are done, whether or not they really benefit society as a whole or even the workplace as a whole. If they really promote workplace harmony. And I think sometimes people don't give that enough credence, and I think that that's unfortunate because um, when people feel that they're respected for themselves and that they can advance in the company without having to do things that don't feel comfortable to them, then that to me is a sign of a healthy workplace. But how many of those really exist, when you think about it? So, anyway, let me just briefly talk about the sun in um, Aries. This is the person who is very ambitious and full of energy. Because this is a double cardinal combination, you are definitely, I was going to say a mover and a shaker, but at the very least, you are somebody who is action oriented. And you might say, what other way is there to be? Well, some people are really great at ideas. And then they come up with brilliant ideas, and then they talk about their ideas, but they don't necessarily implement them. And, think about that. You're going to have the best ideas in the world, but if you don't actually put them into play, you might as well not have thought of them at all. Unless you're going to, pay somebody else for your ideas and then reap the benefits. I guess there's that option, but you know what I'm saying. So somebody who's a double cardinal sign, and of course you can look at your ascendant, if you have either of those signs or the other two cardinal signs, which are Cancer and Capricorn, then you're like a trifecta cardinal sign individual. But just that double sun and moon, you get things done. And what that means is that the chances are that you are going to be successful in that worldly sense, having a successful career, doing other things that are the things that you love. It might be that you're taking messy action at the times, that you're not just waiting for the perfect moment when you're in the perfect position, but you're just doing things. But I feel that people who are doers tend to be successful. The thing about Aries is having a lot of energy means that you can accomplish more than the average person, although being productive isn't necessarily something I associate with Aries per se. I would say with Aries, what I associate with Aries is initiating. Not only being a cardinal sign, but being the first sign of the zodiac. I feel like there is this ability that Aries people have of putting things into motion. Now, do some of those things come to a grinding halt? I suppose if the person doesn't keep them going, and maybe that's true. I know that sometimes Aries people have a hard time finishing what they've started. And that can be because the person loves initiation, the initiation cycle, but isn't too keen on maybe that, kind of like, what do they call it, maintenance, where you're keeping something afloat. That could get a little bit dull because you just enjoy so much the idea of starting something. So in some cases, you might be able to capitalize on that by doing certain things that, specialize in beginnings, and then leaving the part that gets very repetitive, monotonous, to somebody else. That might be the delegating, that kind of thing. And the kind of jobs that, or careers, if you want to call them, that Aries people tend to gravitate towards are jobs that maybe there isn't that predictability. There's a lot of edginess, and that can even go as far as danger. So being a police officer, for instance, because Aries people tend to be active. It's not, I don't see a lot of people who are Aries that would do well in a cubicle, sitting at a desk all day. So, government jobs, secretarial, office manager jobs, that just isn't you. Although I'm sure that there are some of you out there that may have some kind of a desk job, but you tend to be very physical, so you may want a job where you can move around. And this is going to be an intelligent combination, but you may find that you have to do something with physical labor, that you can't just sit and at a desk, or even be like a teacher where you're just in your head, you're in your mind, that you need to actually be constantly exercising. I worked in a health food store for several years, and I would get these regular customers, and one of them was a woman who was like a middle-aged woman who totally did not look like a janitor. Not that there's some poster child janitor, but she looked like, just by her appearance, she looked like a middle-class teacher type of a person, who, the way she was dressed, everything. But she told me that she couldn't have a sedentary job. She had to have a job that she was in motion, because she had a lot of excess energy. She might have been an Aries for all I know. And of course, other jobs like that, construction workers, even carpenters, things of that nature. But in terms of other types of professions, maybe white-collar professions, that's why I say white-collar professions tend to be desk jobs, or, there's a lot of sitting. So being a professor, with the Libra energy, being an air sign, the intellect can be very strong. But Aries is a very intelligent sign. The fire signs are very intelligent naturally, but sometimes people are not aware of it because they also can have other parts of their nature that kind of overshadow that, like their creativity may be front and center. And it's not to say that somebody can't be intelligent and be an artist, but the point is that isn't being showcased sometimes that much, but their creativity is what they're focusing on. One thing that Aries people would really excel in is being a motivational type of individual, like a coach, And of course, because Aries people may love sports, you might be in sports, and teamwork is something that Libras are made for. So that would be a perfect combination. I don't really necessarily look to the moon sign to necessarily provide any kind of uh, attachment to a certain career. But I will say that with the moon sign position, how you feel doing that job can make all the difference. So there are certain types of jobs that may be uncomfortable because you don't feel that they're fair. You don't feel that they are safe. Like if you were a police officer, um, your moon in Libra might be like, I want to be a peace officer. I think there's a type of police officer that's called a peace officer. I can't remember. But somebody who is trying to, tone down violence. That would be something that would be perfect for this combination. You might be somebody who is in the arts with the fire and the creativity, passions burning, with your creativity, with your sun sign, and then Libra is ruled by Venus. That could be a potent combination for that. In terms of your love life, this can indicate somebody who is very contradictory in how you approach love, because your son's, I mean, this could be a romantic combination, though, for sure. There's an ardent quality with Aries, and there is, that those romantic sensibilities with Libra. But the moon in Libra can indicate somebody who's a bit of a people pleaser, who is afraid of somebody not agreeing, afraid of somebody disapproving of them. And that can lead you to have the tendency to give in to others. It's tricky because this is double cardinal, which tends to be a leader type of a role. But in love, because the moon is very vulnerable, you may find that you're kind of a pushover sometimes when it comes to love. Maybe your sun sign, it's kind of like the cowardly lion in a sense, where on the surface you seem like you're full of bluster, but then love can really do you in and make you so I don't want to say subservient or anything like that, but just willing to go along with the other person as long as they are accepting of you. And so that's something to look at, because it can create an imbalance in a relationship, and it can make you invest in relationships that aren't really the best for you. And you may not really pick up on that, because if you have like physical attraction to that person, that can be something that you overemphasize in your one-on-one relationships. Libra loves beauty. Aries is very randy. Let me use that word. So, other thing too is that Aries is very rash. So jumping into something right away, because the moon in Libra might favor somebody wanting to be in a relationship very early on in it, which is can be very foolish when you're not vetting another person. And there's just that emotional need or desire that the person has, and they could end up regretting it dearly if they're not careful. But on the more positive side, this can be this combination can be a lot of fun. Aries can be the big kid at heart. The inner child can be truly active, and Libra can be very witty. Think of Oscar Wilde. Over 100 years later, and we're still quoting him. He has some hilarious quips, and his plays are still things that have not ever become obscure. They're still popular. So you may be a fun party guest. You may have this ability to entertain people, and not that you're kind of like the resident clown, but you just have this it's like an energizing effect, though. It's not just about entertaining. It's like I'm sure all of us, at least I, have hung around someone who was very full of energy, very energetic, and it rubs off on other people. And also this positivity. I think there's a great positivity with Aries in particular. That's why you would make a great life coach or a regular like sports coach, because you can encourage people. When Aries people are balanced, there's no stopping them, because they just have a lot of dynamic qualities. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.